Sean Davis, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. I've saved a Notre Dame question or two that I'll throw in here in a minute,
Okay.
but I'm going to start you off with something else first, if I can find my questions here. Which number will be greater at the end of the season? Sam Hartman's interceptions or Notre Dame's leader in touchdown receptions?
Oh.
So right now, Hartman, of course, he threw his first 3 interceptions last week. Hartman has 3. Holden stays, actually, 4 touchdowns, leading the team right now. And we haven't seen him do anything the last few weeks. So which number is going to be better, Notre Dame's touchdown leader or the interceptions that Hartman throws?
Well, I say this because of the remaining schedule, which is really not that good outside of USC. I'm going to say Sam might throw 2 more interceptions, and I think somebody will get over 5 touchdowns by the end of the year.
Yes.
We still haven't seen the Tobias breakout game with a couple of touchdowns. That's still maybe in the offing. So
I agree. I completely agree with kind of what you're saying, because of once you get past USC, and even USC is like, again, it's not like their defense is any good. I think that we're going to kind of see things. I don't think that Sam Hartman's going to have another multiple interception game this season. I think at the most he has 2 or 3 more interceptions the rest of the season. Like you can never sort of account for tip balls and those kind of things, but look how clean he was just with the decisions that he was making, in the first 6 games of the year before that. But again, like Holden Stays has 4, and the next guy is Jaden Greathouse with 3. He's been injured right now. So I think that I think Mitchell Evans is kind of due for probably a touchdown spree here at some point. Someone like Mitchell Evans, and once Jaden Greathouse gets completely healthy. So I'm going to go with the reception leader as well. I don't think that Sam Hartman will end up throwing that many more interceptions the rest of the season. I think that based on what we've seen from him this season, that game Saturday was an aberration, and I don't think we see anything nearly that bad again. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Gerad Parker says he plans to incorporate more play action in Notre Dame's offense. He said this yesterday.
The problem is not the play action. The problem is, and I would be interested in hearing what you say, but also would be interested in the breakdown that Jesse might be able to do on this. I don't think Sam Hartman's really good at his play action fakes.
I agree with that.
And maybe it's coming from the slow mesh and being used to work that with the running back, but out of a traditional pro set, especially under center, Sam Hartman's not as good at play action in his fakes as I thought he would be.
Yeah, and it seems like that would be something that you could easily work on. Just like watch a little film of Peyton Manning or somebody like that and see how Peyton used play action. Because when you have a run game that's been as strong as Notre Dame has, that should be a much easier weapon to use. But you're right. It's like, the times that you do see it, it's just kind of like it's very token. He's not doing much with it. And that's why I said you obviously don't want to use the slow mesh like he was doing at Wake Forest, but you could still incorporate more RPO, because then you take away the need for play action, because it's essentially him reading the extra defender and, am I going to hand off? Am I going to pass? That kind of thing. So, again, at least you kind of keep the defense honest to an extent. But I think you're right. Like, they need to do something to be able to slow that down and catch a defense off guard, especially as much as they line up with the tendencies that they have. Then they show that they want to pound the football. But it is a good question. Like, does it just come down to the fact that Sam Hartman maybe is not that good at play action, so they're not using it any more than they are?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It should be very interesting, but I just really expected him and his mechanics of the nuances of the position, and this is his
Mhm.
first time really being under center as much as he's been. You know, the
Yeah,
small things matter. That's why Aaron Rodgers and Burrow, Pat Mahomes, they're really good at their play fakes, and it makes a difference.
yep.
It definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, if this is a guy who has NFL aspirations, and at least we think that he does, then, like, this should be something that, you would think that he would be working on still to try to be better at that. So would you buy or sell this season as a success if Notre Dame ends up in a New Year's Six bowl?
Yes, because of it would be growth. I think they're, and it will also mean that they doubled up on beating Clemson, and will also mean that they have a victory over Caleb Williams and USC. So yes, I buy that. It would be a boost in recruiting as well at the end of the season, in my opinion. And you still will feel bad about the missed opportunity against Ohio State, which would have changed a lot of narratives about Notre Dame moving forward. But to recover from that and to recover from Louisville and run the table would show me a lot about this team and its staff.
Exactly, because if they end up in a New Year's Six bowl at this point, it's going to be because they do run the table the rest of the way. They're going to have to win out. They're going to have to be a 10-2 team to get back. And they'll be, if they end up running the table, that would give them obviously wins over both USC and Clemson. And it obviously makes their record 10-2. They're going to end up maybe just outside the top 10, depending on what some other teams do. Like you said, you're going to have this Pac-12 round robin coming up here in the very near
Mm-hmm.
future with all these Pac-12 teams playing each other. So there's going to be a couple teams that are going to come out of that bunch with at least 2 losses and probably more than that as well. So again, it's just like if Notre Dame were to win out, those teams in front of them start falling back, they'll be right around somewhere around the top 10, top 10, top
Well,
12, whatever.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that would absolutely be a success to be where they are right now, to be kind of licking your wounds a little bit with 2 losses, one closer than the other, but to end up 10-2 and in a New Year's Six bowl from where they are right now, that would absolutely be a success to me. And it would be a double-digit win season for Marcus
Yep.
Freeman. And again, like, you start talking about recruiting impact and all that different
Yep.
kind of stuff. It would be a huge success, I think, to
Totally
end
agree.
up there based on where they're at right now. Question from Robert that I'll throw in here, and this has kind of come up the last couple of games. Coach Bayless, his loss, Robert says, seems very significant. Is locating his replacement challenging without game film, etc., that's available for coaches and coordinators? Many thanks for another great show. What do you think about that
Uh,
impact? I
that's
hadn't really thought
something.
of it in that way.
That's something that well, they hired this replacement from in-house, so it's not like the position isn't filled.
Right.
I don't know if
He's at
he's
least
going to.
he's the interim. Now they haven't
Yeah,
decided if he's the guy
that's what I
going
was about to
forward.
say. I don't know if he's the guy moving forward, but it's
Yeah.
somebody that's been around the program, knows what Coach Bayless did, and can continue the same trend. So as far as strength and conditioning, this is something I told said. I don't know a college football team that doesn't lose weight, have players lose weight throughout the season because they're constantly practicing, they're constantly playing, especially the big guys in the trenches. And teams are going to be a little bit more fatigued as the season goes on. Like Travis Hunter might have been playing 150 snaps to start the season. He comes back Friday. By the end of the season, he might be down to 100 snaps on both sides of the ball. I highly
Mhm.
doubt that he's going to keep up the same pace just because of attrition through the season. The Bayless effect, I don't think Matt Bayless had anything to do with them playing bad against Duke and Louisville. So I really can't quantify what his loss means. Maybe he emotionally, certain players had a connection that he was a guy that they could talk to. Maybe he could impact guys mentally,
Yeah.
which is very important, in preparations for games. But as far as on the field performance, I can't sit here, someone said, well, Joe Alt got pushed on his butt. Is that because of Matt Bayless? No, that's because of bad technique.
Yeah.
On that play. Like,
I mean, Bayless got him through the summer. They did the whole summer conditioning and all that. I mean, it happened right before training camp started. And I agree with what you said there. Fred Hale was, the assistant performance coach under Matt Bayless. It's not like all of a sudden, Fred Hale has his system that Matt Bayless didn't, and now they're doing something completely different, especially when when the resignation comes right on the eve of training camp. He's essentially doing the same kind of things that Bayless was doing. And the guy had been here the last couple of years with Matt Bayless, so he knows how things were run and the kind of things that they were doing and everything else. And going to what you're talking about, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, whatever, over the course of the season, this is one of those things where, like when you talk about they want an in-house cafeteria and all those different things, like they're still eating the food. They would like more space to be able to do some of that in the Goog, but they've got that for them. It's not like all of a sudden the food went away. Well, whatever food systems they were on, it's not like that went away. They've still got the GPS systems on all these guys, so they're tracking reps and all these different things. There's a lot of data that they're getting. So I don't buy into that as a reason. Just because, again, like it would. There's enough familiarity that the guy in charge of it, Fred Hill, has now that I just don't think that they're doing anything drastically different from what they were doing before.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Matt Bayless obviously made an impact when he was hired.
Guys always had nothing but good things to say about him.
So what that loss means, I think we'll be able to kind of maybe have a better picture towards the end of the season, maybe.
Yeah. Tim wants to know top 3 memories of USC versus Notre Dame over the years. Do you have a top 3?
Oh, the 88 game. We went out there and smacked them.
Coliseum.
Oh, man. Shout out to my guy, Wes Pritchett, because he has some great stories from that game. If you haven't had a chance to talk to him about that game, from the team meeting where the players decided to send Ricky Waters and the others home, and dude, it was just great. It was like a team effort. It was like, because as a team, you're sending like some of your playmakers home. Like, that's how much confidence they had. Like, look, either you're locked in or you're not,
or you're out.
And if you're not locked in, go home. Yep. So great stories. The Will Fuller, bomb to start the game is a fantastic memory. And then the Sam Darnold game, when they got him to commit fumbles, and they really dominated them that game.
Can Sam Darnold come back for this week's game? Like, bring Sam Darnold back.
Another one is the 89 game. The 89 game, I don't know if people remember, that was the Todd Marinovich game.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I was trying to remember.
Man, he was talked about. He was the number 1 recruit, number 1 quarterback, and he actually played a really good game that day. USC had the lead in the 4th quarter, and Notre Dame had to come back with a Tony Rice touchdown to take the lead. And Todd Marinovich was talking trash to Notre Dame. He had a really good game. Unfortunately, his career didn't continue to blossom, but that's a big memory as well, because there was a lot of buzz around Todd Marinovich and that offense as they came to Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah, for sure. I would say Trojan horse. That's like one of the first memories I have from when I was a kid. The whole Trojan horse thing. Remember that. Bush push, good or bad, is still a memory. And like Vince and I always say, we were standing there at the 5-yard line when everything transpired there at the end. And, just the swing of emotions. It's, again, it's not a good memory, but it's a memory. And it's one of the most memorable Notre Dame USC games ever. And I agree with 88. And when I think of the 88 game, the thing that I always think about is that touchdown run by Tony Rice down the sideline to take it in for the touchdown. And of course, Notre Dame ended up prevailing in that game. Tony Rice versus Rodney Peete. I mean, doesn't get much better than that.
his touchdown pass, the bomb to Rocket out of the end zone where he almost stepped on the chalk on the back line for a safety, stands with Smagala's pick six.
Yep.
That was a fantastic game.
Yep. There's a lot in that one. That's for sure. That was at least a fun one.
Yes.
That we can remember. Mr. 2.0 wants to know if you have a diffuser, and if so, what oils you use.
No, I have, because of my nasal congestion. That's a side effect from the treatments I've just gone through. I keep a humidifier by at all times.
Okay.
Plus, I try to keep, I'm like the hurricanes coming out of the smoke back in the day.
I thought I was seeing things at first. When I first saw it, I was like, what is that? Am I hallucinating here?
It helps me with, like I said, my nasal congestion, so my voice can be normal. And if I didn't have it on, it would probably be a little bit difficult and put more strain on my throat. So I have to have it at I have to put it on the right setting. I have it on the raindrop setting right now. So the mist goes up, but then it drops down. And that's why you see it on my on my screen.
We were talking about, is New Year's 6 would that
it would definitely have to include, I would hope it includes a bowl win. I mean, Marcus Freeman got off the snide against South Carolina, so he has a bowl win under his belt.
And Tim says it would only be a success if they win. I guess, like if you had asked me coming into the season, I definitely would have said that. But again, like sitting where they are right now, I think at least getting to the New Year's 6 bowl would be a win based on where they are right now. Again, like at the beginning of the season, if you would have told me 10-2 New Year's 6, they've got to win. Now it's obviously you want them to win, but I'm saying just the way that everything is set up right now with the opponent that you've got this week, and you still got to go to Clemson and all that stuff. I think at least getting there makes this a successful season at this point, because I've got, you got to readjust your, expectations, I think, a little bit based on where they are. All right. So you're a Bears fan, and there's been talk. I think you are, aren't you? Yes. Okay.
Yes, I am.
It sounded like that was a question at first when you said I am.
Okay. No. I was agreeing. I'm sorry.
Okay. So there's been talk in the last week or so that Lincoln Riley could follow Caleb Williams to Chicago if the Bears were to draft Williams. What do you think about that prospect?
I want absolutely no parts. I'll say this. I'll be honest. My first preference is to have no parts of either one, which would mean Justin Fields has proven himself, and the Bears once again get to control the draft and pick. Can you imagine if the Bears didn't need a quarterback? Caleb Williams is the number one pick that everybody wants, but we get the Panthers pick, which looks like it's going to be the number one pick, and the Bears control the draft again.
That's true.
Which means they get a chance to not only pick up more picks, but gain another team's first round pick in the following year.
Right.
You talk about stacking drafts. That's my preference. I prefer that Justin Fields grows up and becomes a really good quarterback that you can win with. And once again, we control the draft, and we get Atlanta to give up multiple picks to come up and get their guy, or the Patriots or whomever. If they came up, Carolina, and gave us multiple picks in the 23 draft, their first round pick in 24, and DJ Moore for Bryce Young, what do you think the price for Caleb Williams is going to be?
Good point.
That's my preference. But I want absolutely no parts of Lincoln Riley. If Caleb Williams comes, by all means, welcome to Chicago. Lincoln Riley, no. Stay in college. At this point, we need somebody that's an experienced head coach in the NFL that has connections to really good coordinators. That's what's needed.
I think what intrigues me the most about this is all this stuff started with Peter King floating this out last week. And it's like Peter King doesn't typically just throw stuff out there, throw darts at the board. He's going to make his comments based on things that he's hearing. So I've got to think that there's at least something to this, which again makes it really intriguing. And like you said, the way the board, the way the Bears really, the way things are shaping up right now, they control this draft at this point with the draft capital that they've got going into this thing. So
absolutely,
I'm just like the Lincoln Riley to the like. How much does Lincoln Riley want to play in the Big Ten? I think that is a big, because that whole, he went to USC and then a few months later, USC going to the Big Ten was announced. Is he tired of trying to recruit a defense that everyone knows? Going back to Oklahoma, he's never been able to successfully recruit a good defense. Well, you don't have to recruit in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I can see why you wouldn't, want him around. But at the same time, like, you talk about an offensive mind.
Yeah. That transition historically for great offensive minds trying to go to the NFL has usually been a struggle.
That's true.
For them. And I think the difference is Lincoln Riley doesn't really game plan against formidable defenses in the Pac-12 or the Big 12 for that matter during this time. The NFL is, you can say what you want to say. The NFL is the best of the best. And even the worst teams have good players. So that's why they say any given Sunday, and that's why most point spreads are 7 points and less for an NFL game. Like, it's rare you get a double-digit point spread in the NFL. Very rare. So the talent disparity usually comes from, number one, the quarterback.
Right.
And then the trenches in the NFL. It's really simple. If you have a good quarterback, you walk on the field every week in the NFL with a chance to really win.
I think by the end of the season, to your point about you want Justin Fields to be the guy and show that he can be, he started to show some of that against Washington last week. They'll know by the end of the season what he's going to be.
I think his passer rating when he throws to DJ Moore is something like 90.1. It's ridiculous. It's like when he targets DJ Moore, he is like an incredible quarterback.
And that's the start of it. He's got a receiver that he didn't have last year. And as a result, like you said, when he targets DJ Moore, that's been successful the last couple of weeks. Ultra successful last week in that Thursday night game against Washington. But Cole Kmet has also become a bigger part of the offense all of a sudden, as you've got a legit receiving option.
Yes. But
that's also the biggest disappointment about what happened with Chase Claypool, because they felt like he could probably be a legit, at least a number 2 guy, complimentary guy, and really help that offense. But it obviously didn't work out that way. But I don't blame you. I don't think that I would necessarily want any part of a college coach coming in there, no matter how successful he is running an offense and with the connection to Caleb Williams and all that stuff. I don't blame you. I wouldn't want Lincoln Riley either. But at the same time, their track record with hiring head coaches hasn't been very good.
Not been good. Kevin Warren. It's very interesting to see Kevin Warren and his regime just starting this year, how he views everything, how he views Ryan Poles, how he views, Matt Eberflus. I think he's pretty much done.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Fill in the blank. It's blank that after losing to Georgia last week, Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops told Wildcat fans they need to donate to their NIL funds so that Kentucky can buy better players, because that's what Georgia does.
I absolutely loved it. Does that fit in the blank? I don't know.
Hey, it doesn't have to be a complete sentence.
Look, man,
absolutely loved it. That's good enough.
He was on his coach's show. He was kind of joking or making it seem like he was joking, but he was dead serious, in my opinion. And see, Kentucky is a school where the supporters are used to giving money to the basketball program. So it's not like they don't support, because I guarantee you, to get the five stars that Calipari continues to get, they're definitely using some funds to get those guys consistently in Kentucky. So he's just trying to get the same vibe to the football team. And I think it applies to Notre Dame, because we talked about this yesterday, myself and Malik. And we basically told Notre Dame, like, look, you don't have to, or we submitted that Notre Dame does not have to equal what Georgia and Alabama does. Georgia spends $6.5 million on recruiting.
Yeah.
That's their budget. That's absolutely insane. That's insane. But Notre Dame is top 10, and I think Notre Dame is at 3.6 from the last numbers, which is nothing to sneeze at. So 3 to 5, I would say 2 to 4 players per recruiting class. This coaching staff needs support from the alumni and administration. 2 to 4 difference makers in each recruiting class. That's all.
Yeah.
We don't have to be like Alabama and Georgia. The 23 class, it could have been Dante Moore and Peyton Bowen. That's it. That's it. Step up, make sure that we can secure those 2 guys, and it would have had a huge impact on the football program moving forward. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And I don't know, I can't quantify that with how much it would be. I just know that if you're going to be in this arms race that recruiting has become, because it is the wild, wild west right now. There are no rules.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue to stick to your principles, I applaud that, but you're putting your program behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
That you really are.
I do find it kind of humorous that SEC coaches just kind of, say the quiet stuff out loud, that most everybody else say, like, I get what Mark Stoops is saying, but there's no world where Kentucky's ever going to be able to shell out enough NIL money to go out and compete with Alabama or Georgia.
And you're probably right.
Basis.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You're right. If you spin it to Notre Dame, that's a different story, because Marcus Freeman, the way the recruiting is trending, he's got him pointing in the right direction. But it also helps when they've got Sam Hartman out, selling his shirts and sweats and, whatever else, and letting everybody know, hey, I'm Sam Hartman and here I am. And I'm making a lot of NIL right now. And Audric Estime is as well, because really we didn't see kind of a lot of forward facing, facing the camera stuff from any Notre Dame, like even Michael Mayer. We knew Michael Mayer was getting some NIL money last year, but like you haven't seen it as out front, as specific to Sam Hartman and to Audric Estime. And like every once in a while, like you're seeing more Notre Dame guys like this. There's one of these places that does the autographs and stuff like that, and they'll publicize it. And we're seeing more Notre Dame guys doing some of that stuff as well. That's not where the big money is, but at the same time, like Sam Hartman being out there front and center with all this stuff that he's pimping out there, like with his shaving products and whatever it happens to be, like it's and like the beats, going back to the beats and the Under Armour, it's telling these guys that there's money there, even though Notre Dame's not going to be as completely bold and out front as a program with it. They're not going to pay for play and stuff like that, but it's there.
There are ways to do it. What Utah just did with the trucks.
I don't think I saw that.
Players, they got 85 leases for every scholarship player, and as long as they stay on scholarship, they have a truck. And it was a Utah non-for-profit put together by the alumni that allowed it to happen, working with the local dealer. And I mean, it's little small things like that can make a difference. Because the truth of the matter is, we know Caleb Williams, we see him with Wendy's, we see him all over the place, right? And most people say, well, the locker room could have issues if you have guys. There's not one player on USC's team that has an issue with Caleb Williams getting what he gets.
Right.
They know that he's the difference maker.
Yeah.
He's the reason they're still undefeated.
Yeah.
Everybody in that locker room knows that. They don't have a problem. You think players in that locker room have a problem with Caleb Williams getting what he gets when they know who he is on that
Right.
field?
Right.
Absolutely not. The difference comes when you feel like you're just as good as that guy,
Right.
as a backup, and he's getting.
But that's the thing. Like I think they know once they're good enough, their time they'll get their due. And like Tim says, got to have a minimum payout to all players for NIL, go up from there. And I don't know that there's necessarily a minimum, but I'm pretty confident that almost pretty much everyone on Notre Dame's roster is getting some form of NIL. Like they're not like there's a walk-on, Justin Fisher, from here in town. He was doing a local credit union. There were a few of them doing getting NIL from the credit union here in town a few months back. I remember seeing some of that. So like if the walk-ons are getting it, I'm very confident that, and from what I was told, pretty much everyone was getting something from Under Armour last year. Now that number might be bigger now because of the renewed contract and all that stuff. And, like Sam Hartman with the shoes and all those different kind of things. But, again, I don't know that there's a minimum, but I'm very confident that everyone's getting something over there. That's part of the
From
program.
what I've heard, and I've been blessed to meet a lot of Notre Dame fans, and they're the best in the world. I've been blessed to meet, alums, and even some during the Ohio State weekend, and most of them are in full support for Notre Dame to step into the future and maybe do a little bit more and be just a little bit more aggressive when it comes to NIL. So, but my question is, are they waiting for the university, or should the alums be more aggressive and start presenting things too? Because what happened at Utah was outside of the school.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't the school making it happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the alumni base is waiting for Notre Dame to see if they're going to be more aggressive, to see if Pete Bavacqua has different ideas, or ways of doing things that might be different than Jack Swarbrick. This is the transition and what might come of this with the contract for the new TV
Well, I was
deal
going to
still
say
on the
that
horizon.
TV contract, there can still be some NIL at play in part of this TV contract as well. And it could also be why, maybe like, when you're looking at these other numbers and stuff like that are reportedly out there, and it like that Big Ten number, by the way, is a bit lower than it was originally reported because of the way like Kevin Warren didn't necessarily have all the I's dotted and T's crossed on some stuff. So I don't think that number's quite as big as everyone was saying at first. It's still bigger than everybody else but the SEC. But my point is, like, Notre Dame's number might not necessarily be what that Big Ten number was out there reported. Yeah. But if there are NIL opportunities and monies that's included in that as well, that can also go a long way.
And if I'm not mistaken, I remember reading the story. Big Ten teams were thoroughly upset with Kevin Warren, not just because of crossing the T and dotting the I's, but they had to give money back.
Right. They had to give money back, and like this whole thing about, we're going to have to play primetime games in November, and all those. And there was also the fact that I think that like the Big Ten championship game was promised to Fox or NBC, or one of it was promised to one, but he didn't necessarily have the power to give it away because it was already signed to somebody else.
The Big Ten championship game belongs to the Big Ten network.
Right.
So whatever network gets it has to lease it from the Big Ten network. And Kevin Warren just tried to usurp that. And it's like, you don't have that power.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dekoff, by the way, likes my shirt, my Yakada Brewing Company t-shirt. Yakada over in Elkhart. They do have some nice adult beverages and pizzas over there.
What type of brew guy are you? Are you an IPA? You like to experiment?
I'm not an IPA guy.
Okay.
I don't like the bitter hops. I like, especially this time of year now as we're getting into fall and winter. I do like some, my stouts and those kind of things. But otherwise, I like a nice, like an Irish red ale, those kind of things that like in the summer / fall, like a blood orange kind of thing as well.
Okay.
Like those type, so.
Are you one of those?
little bit of everything, especially when it comes to. I'll try a little bit of everything, except for the like New England. I don't know if you've ever had a New England IPA. It's a
No.
little bit milder hop than your typical IPA. It's
Yeah.
like it's a little hazier as well. Like I'll go for the New England IPA, but that's about it.
Does it matter what you're eating?
Not as much.
Okay. I'm Chicago is starting to collect a lot of breweries.
Okay.
And like, man, it's crazy. Like so many breweries are popping up.
Uh-huh.
IPAs are really popping here in Chicago. Really popping, especially the flavored beers. And
Yeah.
it's so much. It's almost like Chicago has become super bougie now when it comes to beer. People are like, well, I'll drink this beer if I'm eating a steak. If I'm having a burger, I'll drink
Right.
this one. I'm like, yo,
Right.
it's beer. Like, which one do you like?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And there's a lot of in southeastern Michigan, just north of us here, there are a lot of craft brewery, restaurant places that popped up. And you'll see, like, especially out in the summertime, if you go to one on the weekend, there'll be a lot of these bus trips from Chicago that come over. And like, they'll have like one of those mini buses, and full like 20 people or something like that. And they'll stop in at each of these places. They'll stay for maybe an hour or so, and then they'll load up the bus and they'll go to like 4 or 5 of the different breweries in the area. And then, they'll all be drunk and they'll take them back to Chicago at the end of the day. So, yep, we've been over there plenty of times where we see the buses roll in, and
Really?
you got to make sure you get there early enough if you go on the weekend that you beat those buses coming over from Chicago.
Okay.
So, yep. Good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. We have merged into beer talk at the end of the show. So we will wrap it up with that. Sean, I appreciate you jumping in and being our sixth man once again. It's always great having you on.
Yo, I love being on with my brother Sean Stiers. Man, I tell Jesse I look forward to chopping it up with him as well.
Okay.
Because I haven't chopped it up with him, and we were both on a post-game show last year.
That's right.
And that was the last time I got a chance to chop it up with him. I plan to be there this weekend, so I'll definitely touch base with you.
Sounds
and
good.
Hope to get to see you. But I can't wait to come back on IB Nation during the basketball season.
There you go.
I'm really excited.
It's going to be here soon. That's right. Looking forward to it. Both men's and women's. I think it's going to be a great season. Well, men incrementally. Women, I think, are going to be pretty elite. I think it's going to be a fun basketball season, though. Like seeing what Micah Shrewsbury is able to do with this young crew that he's got out there.
So thanks for having me. To all the Notre Dame fans, man, have a blessed week. And man, let's get it on Saturday.
All right. Sounds good to me. Have a good one. Hit the like button on your way out. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.